There exists on the continent a massive unfunded pension debt run up by German, French and Italian politicians, and it's been estimated at £1,300 billion. And that would be something which we, the British people, would be expected to contribute.
But how could Britain ever free herself from the European Union through military action if all her armed forces were under EU command? And in the unlikely event that she did regain her independence, how could Britain relaunch her own currency if she had handed all her gold and currency reserves over to the European Central Bank?
And the question that you can ask our ministers is, how is it that they have sworn oaths of office that say that they will defend all jurisdictions and authorities belonging to Her Majesty against all foreign powers, and then they give away those powers of governance, or are purporting to give away those powers of governance, to those that owe no allegiance to this crown?
Well, today the European Parliament has voted on the admission of 10 new member states. I have to tell you that I was one of only 22 members of a House out of 626 that voted for those countries not to join. I did so not just because it would save the British taxpayer a great deal of money if they didn't join. I did it for their sakes because most of these countries have just left a system of centralised, undemocratic communist government based in Soviet Russia, and I fear they're about to re-enter a very similar system. But I must say this to you, that not everything about this European project is bad news, because the really good news is there's something we can do about it. If we want to, and all we need is the political will, a British Parliament at any moment in time can vote for us to have an amicable divorce from this corrupt club. We can then renegotiate a genuine free trade agreement, which is what we thought we'd signed up to in the first place. And even here, commissioners like Kinnock and Patton and luminaries such as Giscard d'Estaing say that if Britain doesn't want to be part of this full political union at which they're attempting, we can, if we want, get out of it and renegotiate a free trade deal. We don't need to be in the EU to trade with the EU. That idea is anachronistic and dates back to the 1950s and 60s. So it really is up to us. But we have to do something about it. We have to vote for people who will not allow this continual surrender of our sovereignty to continue.
Since this production was made, the European Constitution was rejected in 2005 by the people of France and the Netherlands. The polls in England indicated that the people would reject it if they were allowed to vote on it. The elites who intend to rule Europe are now ignoring the people and forcing them into a new treaty that is the same as the European Constitution, to place them under the rule of unelected foreign leadership. If passed, the loss of British independence will be made permanent, along with the loss of a host of rights that are common to the English and Americans. What does this have to do with you and me? Let's look at the similarities between what has happened in Europe and what is unfolding here in our own hemisphere. As the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, was being debated in 1993, political heavyweight Henry Kissinger said that NAFTA is not a conventional trade agreement, but the architecture of a new international system. The Washington Post, in describing the far-reaching effects of NAFTA, also wrote, "NAFTA creates a variety of continental institutions that are, in aggregate, an embryonic NAFTA government." Notwithstanding these inherent problems, Bill Clinton signed NAFTA into law anyway on December 8, 1993. NAFTA's proponents have continued to push for its expansion. Former President of Mexico, Vicente Fox, recently wrote, "After my election as president in 2000, I proposed a NAFTA Plus plan to President Bush to move us towards a single continental union modeled on the European example." Because of 9/11, this proposal was put on temporary hold. However, on March 14, 2005, a Council on Foreign Relations task force published a report entitled Creating a North American Community. It stated in part, "We propose the creation by 2010 of a community to enhance security, prosperity, and opportunity for all North Americans." Just 9 days later, the three leaders of Canada, Mexico, and the United States released a joint statement stating, "We announce the establishment of the Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America." The New York Times understood the significance of this step. For just 5 days after the joint statement, its editorial page declared, "The SPP of North America should create a permanent North American Commission working towards an eventual goal of a true North American Union." Most Americans don't know it yet, but we are already far down the road to losing our sovereignty, our independence, our Constitution, our court system, and our ability as a people to keep and preserve our wonderful country. A land of freedom, a land of opportunity. Already NAFTA tribunals have superseded our own courts, including the Supreme Court. Do you want to lose habeas corpus, trial by jury, or oversight of our own monetary system to a group of people you have never heard of or elected? The British did not understand that free trade meant something different to the framers of the European Union than it did to the people. We are falling into a similar trap with NAFTA as elites in our own nation build the North American Union under the label of free trade. It's time to stop this process now.